Welcome everybody and welcome to a new video, and today we're gonna talk about the update that's coming up next month in June. So here we have a nice banner which showcases basically 3 new cards, but let's see what else is all up. So we got balance changes, new cards, new brawls, new login, hey, and the FAQ. So let's start with the first balance changes. This release, just like any other, will bring some balance changes, and the first one we see is Rain of Frogs now costs 3 mana instead of 2. Well, that's a huge nerf, and you see here below as well, that's the card that we are getting a compensation from. So make sure you have no yellow border on your own Rain of Frogs, so upgrade it, receive more goodies. But let's go talk about the need of a nerf of Rain of Frogs. So as most people know, Rain of Frogs spawns a lot of small tokens. Let me just put it on the screen here as well for anybody who doesn't know it. And well, this is just level 1, and higher levels it spawns up to 6 random toads, or 6 toads on 6 random tiles in your front area. And well, most of the time it gets synergy in combination with Prime Oracle Bragda, that's the neutral legendary elder, and it's just insane. You can just get so much value, and it just hurts a lot. And well, they want to nerf it. Well, what does Rain of Frogs synergize as well with as well? That's obviously Klaxi and Obsidian Butchers. That's basically the runner that absorbs all the 1 strengths off the board. So that's my first problem already. Like, Obsidian Butchers in combination with Rain of Frogs isn't an issue. Klaxi with Rain of Frogs, well, it is somewhat an issue, but well, if you want to play it in 1 turn, it's a 10 mana combo, so that's pretty annoying. But the biggest issue lies obviously with Prime Oracle Bragda and Rain of Frogs. So that it was an 8 mana and now becomes a 9 mana combo. And well, that's just, well, it's huge obviously to get it like 1 turn ahead, or play Rain of Frogs before you want to play a Bragda and your opponent has time to counteract. So, but that's the real issue. And I'm really happy that this combination that is actually like so overwhelmingly present in Hero League gets a nerf. But why on Rain of Frogs? Like, there's a lot of arguments to make to nerf Rain of Frogs a little bit. So like maybe make like 1 less token, like if you have like 2 mana 5 or 6 and all, etc, you get like a little bit less value out of it, but then it's still around the 5 and the 6 mana what you also have with all the 2 drops, etc. So they could have like a smaller nerf on this card, but the big issue I have is basically Prime Oracle Bragda. That card is just completely garbage. It's basically a Shadowfen card that is giving strength to all your little toads on the board. And yeah, that card just needs to be changed. That card isn't even fun for any other kingdom. Well, fun is relatively, but like if you want to have a viable competitive option, that card is being played with Shadowfen. And I don't think that you want to have neutral legendaries. That is basically just like a proxy Shadowfen legendary. So somewhere Sheepyard has made a big oof, I think, in their logic here, by just taking out the Shadowfen and not looking at the bigger problem, which is basically there is a legendary in the game that's just a proxy for Shadowfen. So hooray for seeing diminishing returns for the Rain of Frogs combo on higher leagues. And also on lower leagues it works pretty well. But boo for not solving the real issue and going maybe a little bit overboard with Rain of Frogs. Alright. Next up is Booming Officers. Ability deals, well, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. And it's basically 1 or 2 more strength. So what does it do? On play, it deals damage to the closest enemy behind. Well, I just want to share, because not a lot of people see this card in action. maybe people will get some copies and then just like, ah shit, I got a boomstick officers. I think you still have the feeling of, ah shit, I got a boomstick officers. But obviously having its ability increased on a card that is not really that viable in the current meta, it's always good. Because if you have this card and you can deny the enemy front, or you have some more high roll potential, you get a little bit more value out of it. Like for example, 6 mana, get 10 value out of it and a mover. That's pretty insane. You can also clear a card that's basically in a pocket in the corner of your baseline. So there's a lot of situations where something like this is kind of interesting. So do I think this card will see a lot more play? I'm not sure. Maybe on the lower leagues it will be a bit more interesting, since you have less units on the board and a bit more higher mana curved cards. So you have a more consistent getting value out of the increased ability damage. On the higher levels we see so many cannon fodder of 1 and 2 mana cards nowadays. I don't think, like, dealing 10 damage instead of 8, well, those dudes just have 5 or 6 strength anyway, so you just kill them anyway. So not that much worth. So that's my 5 cent for it. So we got another card that doesn't see a lot of play, and that's Gold Grubbers. Its ability now replaces 2 non-pirate cards at level 4 and level 5, up from 1. Yeah, it doesn't gain that much value. I do think for having a Diamond, Platinum and Hero League, having this card cycle 2 non-pirates is a bit more interesting. Might also be nice to see in the draft and in the brawls, like just a little bit more cycling up to the ante. And well, obviously if you're gonna run a pirate deck, most likely you got Lucky Charmers, so then Gold Grubbers can enable a bit more consistency in having more value for Lucky Charmers, and I think that's great. Also summons up Lucky Charmers a bit more quicker, because you cycle more cards throughout your deck. So I think it's a nice addition. Obviously nothing to say on the lower leagues. Would be interesting even to see it cycle 2 cards from level 1 already. I think I would even enjoy that a little bit more, because then this card becomes a bit more interesting. And yeah, it could use to be a little bit more interesting for sure. So yeah, we got that one. And yeah, not much to say. I hope this card makes it a little bit more viable to go Lucky Charmer Pirate. That would be nice. But for most of the cases, not much will be changed or impacted from this change. Alright, the 4th balance changed card is North Sea Dog, and its ability grants now 6, 7, 8, 10, 12. That's basically 1 or 2 strength from the previous stat line. And well, this card, first of all, I really enjoy this card since it's just a funky design. It's being used in aggro decks, mid-range decks and control decks. Like every archetype can use a North Sea Dog. Obviously if you go control you have to have a bit of a weird deck, or maybe not control mode. Anyways, let's just continue on. I think the most straightforward to use a North Sea Dog is into a deck where you go hyper aggro, and having a card that basically, let's just say, is 11 strength when you play it. And this is the mid-range style, right? Where people start playing Aaron or like big ass clears, crazy bombers. Well, then having a card that is basically 13 strength, that has just a bit more potential for you to sticking up your front line and being near your opponent's baseline. I think that is incredibly important. And that a card like North Sea Dog is a good one to have. Obviously there is some sick high roll potential with First Mutineer and stuff, where you can get this combo on fairly quick. So yeah, that becomes really scary. That is already an insane high roll potential for any runner's deck. Obviously you don't see it that often, since it's just a bit too tricky and you have to go all in. and we see a lot of players using Hunter's Vengeance, which destroys all your cannon fodder. So yeah, that's painful. But if you look at it, like the difference between an 11 or a 13, like a 13, even if you have like two drops that are 6 strength, like Sparkly Kitties and whatever, just the Destructo bots, you can still not even clear a North Sea Dog. While at 11, you can easily do it with the Gifted Recruits and the Sparkly Kitties, or etc, etc. It's just way more easier to deal with. So big fan of seeing North Sea Dog. I'm not sure, maybe this might actually become pretty viable. Definitely try it out if you want to go with a hyper aggro deck. Alright, and then we have the last one, and that's Call for 8. Now spawns units with 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 strength. It's 1 strength up. Yeah, this card, it's... obviously you see this card a bit more often when you go into your bronze, silver, gold, and maybe at gold people are already declining using Call for 8, etc. for platinum, and in diamond basically you don't see Call for 8 unless someone just wants to experiment and have some fun in the game, but that maybe looks into the most competitive strategies. Obviously a nice synergy with Archdruid Aaron as well, but will this be enough? Like, if you look at it at max value, you get like 4 times 8 strength, so that's 32 strength on the board for 7 mana. It's quite a lot, right? Especially if you play this in the middle of the board. It's hard to deal with. You can use it defensively, aggressively. So interesting choices. But it's so super duper slow. It's high mana cost, so it's super tricky to have it as a finisher, while there are so many or better alternatives. But obviously getting this card 1 more strength, I think it's just fine. Let's see how it rolls. Most likely this won't still be competitive viable, but I think if you start memeing with this deck, just experimenting it, using it with an Archdruid Aaron deck, yeah, just having that 1 additional strength, especially 8 strength, this also clears like most 4 drops that has 8 strength. Yeah, that's just nice and convenient. Maybe survives AoE a little bit easier, etc, etc. So I think it's a nice buff, and it deserves one, because I haven't seen it on the high levels. I've seen it on the low levels, sometimes a bit underwhelming, but it's fun. So maybe we can share that fun in the higher leagues as well, a bit more easy. Alright, now the exciting part, and we get to the 3 new cards. So what we got Final Sacrifice. Trigger the ability of a friendly non-legendary unit with up to 4 strength. Then destroy that unit. Well, and 4 strength is level 2, and it goes up to a unit with up to 7 strength and destroys that unit. So it's an interesting one. There's a lot of abilities that you want to trigger. Obviously the downside of destroying that unit is pretty painful. So you want to have it on low strength already in most cases. Well, but it's also forced, like the unit with up to 5 strength. I'm not the biggest fan on having like a strength restriction on this card. Like for example, if you use a Crazy Bombers, obviously you're gonna use Crazy Bombers for its ability, but it also has a thick, strong ass body. But if you want to sacrifice it with Final Sacrifice, then it well, first you need to do self damage or having it being damaged, so it's a bit wonky and makes it a little bit less intuitive to play, unless you just don't have very high level cost cards and you want to trigger their abilities. But do we want that to use it that often? I'm not sure. So most likely you just want to be lucky or set up some kind of situation where your ability cards get damaged by your opponent, and then you can do this, use this card on well, basically as low as possible strength card. So I'm not sure how good it is. It's a funny one. The restriction makes it hard to combine it with high level cost cards, and obviously is one restriction. There's also non-legendary, so a lot of stuff there it falls off as well. Just think about having this on a Klaxi, play Final Sacrifice a turn afterwards to just trigger it once again. So we got some funky stuff going there. Yeah, I don't think we see this card that much, but this will be a card where a lot of people will start experimenting with. And this is also a really difficult card to predict, because, well, we haven't have anything like this in the game so far. It just becomes really tricky, and yeah, that's basically it. Also, one thing to note, like, trigger the ability of a friendly non-legendary unit. So it triggers ability. So basically ignores like on play, on def, on whatever. It just triggers its ability and then sacrifices unit. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't have to fulfill some certain criteria, like maybe even Void Surgers. Maybe Void Surge is a good one that you still have to have 3 surrounding units. I'm not sure how it works with that, but that's a good one to experiment with once this card is up and running, and we can experiment with it. So what cards can we expect to play this ability on? Well, obviously we can skip all the legendaries. So we got a Temple Guardians. That might be pretty nice, right? 4 mana, spawn an additional some knights. Well, obviously you have to combine it with temple structures. Well, Vision of the Grove, one of my favorites to use it with. I'm not a big fan of how it uses, but most likely this is the biggest improvement of Vision of the Grove meta. You need to do some self-inflicted damage, but once you get that, you can just get with even more mana in spare, combination probably with Gift of the Wise, it's the turn after, and then you can shoot some firing big lasers. So a Sharp Fist Exiles card like that are just rubbish. It will destroy itself, no value there. And Crazy Bombers, what I already mentioned, that's an interesting one, deals a lot of damage. Well, maybe if your Elder is just like 1 strength, you can trigger it. That's funky to have. This one, basically 4 mana buff for 6. It's like a bit more expansion of Potion of Growth with stuff going on, but it can do. We have like Victors of the Melee. We can deal 2 damage to surrounding enemy units. Or you can deal 1 chip damage with Vindicators. Yeah, so there are a lot. Like Ludic Matriarchs just spawn the whole board once again with some dragons. But things like Mechanical Workers, like play Mechanical Workers, it spawns, it moves forward, next turn you play another Mechanical Workshop behind it or something, that will be funky. Matter Spongers, that's an interesting one, since you can deal a lot of friendly damage if you have a full board. So before moving, so you play this card, it deals damage. Then you maybe command it, it deals damage, and then you play the sacrifice and then deal 3 turns in a row, or 3 playing cards in a row, chip damage to your opponent. And what else? A little bit of Drain, not interesting I suppose. Well, this is an interesting one. Randomly give strength to 2 other friendly units equal to the damage it received. Well, it's being destroyed, but it didn't receive any damage. So I'm not sure if this triggers right, because it didn't deal any damage to it. So most likely Bucks of Wasteland will just be nothing. While Dawn Sparks gain 4 mana, but the card is already 4 mana, so just you cycle a card and destroy a friendly unit on the board. Maybe you want to create some space for a runner, who knows. Might be an interesting lethal. Avian Stalkers, just force the ability instead of waiting for your opponent. Or Beards of Crowglyph, most likely the same, right? With the same strength on the random bordering tile. Oh no, this is pretty sick actually. Spawn an Elder with the same strength. So you can just spawn a copy without its, well, basically spawn an Elder token with the same strength. Blood Ministers just convert once again. well, you can do this one to force the damage. Well, you see what is going on. It's there are some cards that actually are fun. I think that's enough said about Final Sacrifice, and let's continue on to the next one. Alright, the next spell is Quakefall of the Skies, 2 mana, common. Deal X damage to a non-temple structure, then spread the amount received among surrounding enemy units and structures. So this is like an AoE spell where you just destroy your opponent's structures. Which one do you want to destroy? Obviously True Shot Post is a pain in the ass. We got some Glacier Palace, which can be a pain in the ass, and Frozen Core. And Upgrade Point, Mech Workshop, Siege Breakers. Like, there is a bunch of cards we do want to remove. And not always that easy, since if you want to use Execution, it's 4 mana, so that's not that applicable. And well, Siege Breakers is a good and decent card, but you have to be in the vicinity of the structure to destroy. And this card is also doing some funky stuff by dealing damage and then spread the damage as AoE surrounding. So yeah, it's a like, if this works and you are facing an Ironclad who plays SimCity, it's insane, right? You can just like boom chaka chaka laka his whole baseline, or basically the whole everything he has. But if he doesn't, then yeah, not much happens. So this is basically what I call a hard counter card that goes really well or not. It also works with your own structures, obviously. Deal 2 damage, so you can place your own Fort of Amarok unstable build in combination with Quakefall. And then, well, if you, for instance, it's a 4 mana combo with unstable build, and on max level you deal 5 damage to it, and then it spreads. It's 5 damage received, like crazy bomber style, the pew 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 on enemies surrounding it. That's what the spread means. So yeah, it does a little bit, but I wouldn't say this is gonna be used that often to just AoE tickle your enemy units. So that's something. And well, as you can see, it deals 1 till 5 damage. Like, it's lower than the strength it requires to destroy a structure. So if you play Quakefall of the Skies as a clear 2 structures, you need to combine it with Bladestorm or Needle Blast. So yeah, this is this is some funky card. This feels like a hard counter card for the Brawl, where we play structures for 2 mana. So we're gonna see this card there on every deck. Like, if you not run this card in that deck, then you're just a silly goose, because in combination with Powder Tower and the Dr. Mia or something, or Temple of Time, well, you have to just immediately clear off everything. Might even run Bladestorm in the structure Brawl, just because you can eliminate structures in combination with Quakefall. Not sure if you want to, but well, it's insane for that. And yeah, further than that, yeah, probably just tournaments, right? Like, the meta for structures, it's up and down. It depends a little bit. Like, with the decline of Siege Breakers in people's deck, people are tending a bit more playing some structures, but having 2 mana deal 5 damage to a structure doesn't do jack shit, because it still survives. Maybe tickle a friendly unit or an enemy unit from your opponent surrounding it. Yeah, it doesn't do what it needs to do, but it's 2 mana, so people are gonna run this card. If it isn't that much for you, then yeah, probably just don't deck it in. This is a meta counter and Brawl counter. In draft, I don't think you're gonna see this card at all, so just put this on the garbage pile for the draft, and then hopefully you get 2 better picks to choose from. Alright, last one of the new cards, and this is a funky, and it's named Stream of Consciousness. 3 mana, a common, and its ability is destroy a target friendly unit and play a random level, depending on the level of the card, non-ancient unit on the same tile. So first of all, in the game, a card game like Hearthstone, I've played a lot of random decks, and I really enjoyed that. Like having all those weird situations where you have to make some cheese out of it. It's very interesting and cool. It was never maybe top meta, at least not when I was playing it, but it was fun enough that you could reach easy legendary rank with it. But having this card in Stormbound, it tickles me a bit backwards. Like, I do like randomness in that case. Stormbound maybe not so much, but it's also maybe how this card is put up. Like, it destroys a target friendly units. So let's just say that's Erratic Neglects and Fragmented Essences, which you're gonna use. Oh, you have Timber now as well. So there's like 3, 1 and 2 drops in the game that are Ancients, and obviously you're gonna trigger it on highly damaged Ancients as well. So that might also be a target. So in most cases you play this on a very low strength card. It's 3 mana. Well, they say below in the FAQ that the average mana cost card it summons is 4.5. So let's say you spawn a 4 mana or a 5 mana. Obviously you have spent some mana to get a card on the board and have some stuff. Fragment Essences is ideal for this card because it just splits off in 2 ways. So, well, its strength gets reduced. So even you just use it on a 3 strength card. That's pretty sweet. I think that's all fine. And the average on level 4 and a level 5 card, that might also be just fine. Like, and sometimes you roll a little bit lower, you get a 2 drop. Well, it's shitty. Like, oh, frick, you just lost a lot of tempo. But it's like the average of the average, right? There's like completely no control about the randomness. It's just completely random. And that's what hurts me a little bit more. Like, you can play this card as first turn on just imagine you play your opponent plays on the 3 mana turn, plays Gifted Recruits and Green Prototypes. Then you play your Erratic Neglects and you summon this card on it and you get a Kluxi. You basically have a Kluxi on your baseline and you have 2 10/10 strengths at your opponent's side of the board. Instant GG. Nothing your opponent can do with 4 mana to deal with like 30 strength of shit on the game state. And see, this is like a scenario, obviously, yeah, it's just very low and it's maybe like a 10th of a percent odds to have a situation like this. Obviously, there's even lower, I don't care. Like, that something like that can happen is just insane. Like, you get so much value out of this randomness. And, well, I just said in Hearthstone I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of cards in Hearthstone. You get random cards in your hand. But then you had still need to spend the mana on the cards. Maybe there was like a mana reduction or something or stuff like that. But that felt balanced. You just had like really weird options. Basically what happened when Rogue Sheep was a really big hype and everybody was playing it. Like those kind of situations. That's what is really interesting. This is just blatantly stupid. Where you can like, if you just high roll, it's just so shitty. So that's what my big ass problem with it. And I just feel bad that they didn't look at this card. But let's see what kind of bad boys we can get if you are on the lucky side. So just imagine you play it on Erratic Neglects and you play the spell, you get a Siren of the Seas. Let's just put it on 5, so it's easier to talk to. You get to like 12 strength on your opponent baseline. Noise of the Hammer, 12 strength at 6 strength on your baseline. Just a construct. It also has movement, right? Because it plays it. 24 strength, you can get a nice Chill Beards. Well, that's maybe not the nicest one. Vision of the Grove, really strong. But Temple Guardians, just spawn 36 strength on your baseline first turn. Like, you see what's going on here? Crazy bombers, Sarah the Resurrector, Queen of Hearts. Imagine if you're also playing a swarm deck, or Archdruid Aaron with some spells. You get like Archdruid Aaron, call for 8, and then whatever, like another spell that adds some value. You can just go bonkers here, and that's the whole issue with it. Like, your opponent doesn't have, like, if you get your 8 Dustbringers on in your first turn and your opponent has to deal with it, yeah, that's so tricky. And the same goes on, yeah, obviously we're getting a little bit lower, but the Tagore is scary as hell, and Twilight is also nasty. There's like so many creepy stuff that you can spawn. Yeah, and that's something I don't think we do like to have. So yeah, what I would think, like, you want to limit it. Perhaps just say Stream of Conscience is just destroy and spawn a random level X non-ancient unit from 5 mana on the same tile. Boom! That makes it immediately, like, you limit the pool, you know what you can expect. You can even, like, as a player, you can make some deduction on what you're gonna get and how you want to interact with it. What I personally like as well is, like, destroy a target friendly ancient unit and play a random level X non-ancient unit that costs 2 more mana on the same tile, or 3 more mana on the same tile, because it's 3 mana, so you basically up it with 3 mana or something like that. Then instantly you need to understand, like, alright, if I play this card, then the card pool is all the 6 manas. Which 6 manas do I want? Well, obviously getting a diversity of all 6 is really fun. You can also say, like, you can limit it to like only the race or the kingdom you're playing. So for Swarm, you just use this on a card. That is 3 mana. And then hope always for a Box of Wasteland. So you can combo it off a little bit. Obviously then it feels really strong, so it needs to balance it again. But see what you go, then you have like real scenarios. You can balance a little bit easier and stuff. And you can prepare for it. You can anticipate for it. Now it's just completely random. And I'm not sure. Like, perhaps this won't be even on average an issue. But you can just meme and just so stupid. Like, just imagine getting a high roll in Hero League top 10. You just play this card in. Get 4 good runs in a while. And then you end up number 1. Because you had like insanely lucky stuff. Obviously there's a lot of people who also try it and get very unlucky. They got really salty and aren't on the good side of RNGs. Yeah, that's just painful. So yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I do like the direction of having some card of like blah. I'm happy that they are putting some cards like this in the game, but I don't think this is the flavor we want and should want going forward. So for these new Brawls, we have like, for the new cards with the new Brawls, will be 0 mana, 1 copy. Just level it up to level 3 if you have it, then you can actually play the Brawl, otherwise you just get bushwhacked by level disadvantage, and you don't want that. So last but not least, the new login system they are introducing. Well, they already started introducing this like 18 months ago. So it took a freaking long while for them to make progress on it. Obviously they've been busy on all other stuff. So I'm not sure how much this has been on the back burner and just slow rolling this in between the updates. I hope they didn't spend too much time on it. For me personally, this doesn't add that much value. Like, I just want new content and new cards, balance chases, improvements, and, well, more stuff to do. Especially as a veteran player who grinds through the content real quick. Stormbound has been lacking as basically forever. So it's always painful, and then you have like a feature like a new login. Whoopty freaking do. Not that interesting. Well, most likely it helps with your friend list with a lot of usernames that get like player dash 1234. So I suppose that will be fixed, but furthermore than that, yeah, not much for me personally. But I never owned an iOS device, and most people with iOS devices had more trouble with this. Well, what do you need to do? Well, you can still use Congregate, but you can also use it to just probably link it to Google Play and Apple Game Center. And I hope, and I suppose they will just make the Congregate obsolete at some point, and everybody needs to go over. And that will be slow rolling, but all newer players cannot even go into Congregate, just go directly to Google Play and Apple Game Center. And something that is nice, like what a lot of people want, is better names. Like if you have a nickname that was like 12 years ago and you want to be named differently, then you need to ask Congregate, and those weren't the easiest procedures to get your name changed. So most of the time you just never got what you wanted, and now you can, and everybody has an opportunity to change their nickname. Your nickname will also be locked, so you can just change into your own nickname again. So nothing happens for the people who go with that procedure. So for the FAQ, the update will be released the 12th, 19th and the 26th respectively for the 3 new cards. And obviously the balance changes will be on the first day of the month, and also the compensation. So upgrade your cards the last day of this month for sure. And some extra information how does Stream of Consciousness work, but I think I have captured it all. So that's basically it for this update. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a long talk and a lot of ranting maybe as well, but I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts about this update are, and if you agree or disagree with me, and share it in the comments. Thank you. Cheers.